An investor bought a property in Orlando, Florida. He found a tenant, moved him in. 2 weeks later, they received a letter from the condo association, from the HOA. The community did not allow rentals at all. It was buried in a document that nobody told them to read. They actually had to evict this tenant who had done nothing wrong. They still owed the mortgage. They really couldn't sell fast enough to avoid a loss, and they had legal fees on top of everything else. I've seen this story play out more times than I can count. And every single time it was completely preventable. My name is Moe Remillard. I'm a licensed Florida real estate broker and a licensed community association manager. That's a CAM. And I do hold a CMCA designation. I've been licensed in Florida real estate and community management since 2013. 13 years of actually seeing what happens inside these communities. And I also own Premier Property Group of Volusia County. Now, a community association manager is the person who runs HOA and condo communities day to day. I've sat inside the board meetings. I've read thousands of pages of governing documents. I fielded the phone calls from the investors after things go wrong. That's really quite a different perspective than most people that I've seen teaching real estate investing online. And today I'm going to use it to make sure that you never end up like this investor in the story. And if you're investing or thinking about investing in Florida real estate, especially in an HOA or a condo community, this video is going to save you a ton of money. So stay with me. Let me give you the full picture of what happened with that investor. They found what looked like a perfect deal. It was a condo in Florida, great location, solid numbers, priced right. The realtor showed them the listing. They did their due diligence on the price. They got financing. They closed. Nobody, not the realtor, not the title company, not the lender, told them to open the Declaration of Covenants. That's the governing documents that lay out the rules for the entire association, including whether the owners can actually rent their units. This particular community added a non-rental clause years earlier. It was buried on page 34 of a 67-page document. When the HOA letter arrived, the investor had two options. One, remove the tenant or face daily fines that would compound until they did. Obviously, they chose to remove the tenant, and that meant starting an eviction against someone who had signed a valid lease and did absolutely nothing wrong. Now, just think about what that costs. Legal fees, lost rent during the eviction process. The mortgage still needs to be paid every month. The tenant potentially fighting back that they did have a valid lease, and at the end of it all, a property that they couldn't rent and didn't want to sell at a loss. This is not an unusual story in Florida. It's actually one of the most common mistakes that I see. And here's the part that still frustrates me. The document was right there. The seller was legally required to provide it. The investor just never read it. So let's talk about what you actually need to check before you buy in any Florida HOA or condo community. I'm actually going to give you three things right now, and I want you to write these down. Number one, does the community allow rentals at all? Now this sounds obvious, but it's the one that most people miss. In Florida, HOA and condo communities can legally prevent rentals entirely. Some communities were built as owner-occupied from day one. Others added the rental restrictions later through a vote of the membership, etc. Either way, if you buy there expecting to rent, you're in trouble. Now, where do you find this? The CC&Rs is what we call them, and they're actually the Declaration of Covenants and Restrictions. And you request these before you close in Florida. The seller is legally required to give them to you. Now, most buyers, they just get them, they sign them at closing, that they received them, etc. And they sit in their drawer. Now, I want you to read them or hire somebody to read them. It's that important. Number two, is there a rental cap? Now, what do I mean by a rental cap? Let's see, even if the community allows the rentals, they may cap how many units can actually be rented at one time. I've seen communities capped at 10%. I've seen communities capped at 25% and so forth. I've got one community right now that's at 50%. So what this means practically is this, is if the cap is already full when you buy, you can't rent your unit. You're on a waiting list, and that waiting list could be months, it could be years. This also affects your financing. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have rules about investor concentration in condo communities. So if too many units are invested and rented, the community may not qualify for the conventional financing, which means when you go to sell, your buyer pool is cash only. That kills your resale value. Number 3, does the tenant need board approval before they move in? Well, in most Florida condo communities, the answer is yes. The tenant has to submit an application. They've got to see a background check, sometimes a credit check. The board reviews all this information and they can either approve or deny it. The process typically takes about 2 to 4 weeks. And here's where investors get burned. They sign a lease with a tenant, agree on a move-in date, then they discover that the tenant still needs board approval. Well, the tenant moves in without approval and the HOA sends a violation notice to the owner. That's you. And the fines are your responsibility. In some communities, you can be required to remove the tenant entirely if approval was skipped. I have personally managed communities where this exact situation happened. The investor was completely blindsided. The tenant was upset, obviously, and it became a legal situation that cost everyone time and money. All because nobody checked step number 3. Now, those are the 3 most critical items, but there are 24 more things I check before advising any investor on a Florida HOA or condo property. And I put all 27 of them into a free checklist that you can download right now. I want to give you one more piece of context that's specific to Florida right now, because the rules changed in 2022 and not a lot of the investors have caught up yet. So after the Surfside condo collapse back in 2021, Florida passed Senate Bill 4D. This law essentially requires, among other things, condo buildings that are 3 stories or higher to complete structural integrity tests. And more critically, to fully fund the reserve accounts. Now, reserve accounts or reserves are the money the association sets aside for major repairs, such as roofs, elevators, parking structures, seawalls, etc. Now, many of the older condominium associations hadn't been fully funding their reserve accounts. They've been kind of letting them slide for a little bit. And so they are severely underfunded, some of them. And so now they are legally responsible and required to catch up. Obviously, the way they catch up is through special assessments, which are one-time charges to every unit owner. And that will be you if you purchase this. So I've seen special assessments in Volusia County and the surrounding counties come in at $10,000 per unit. Some in Central Florida coming in at $25,000 per unit. And in some South Florida buildings, 6 figures. These become your bill the day you close. So before you buy in any Florida condo community, especially one built before 1995, you really need to check the reserve study. You need to ask about the pending special assessments, and you need to make sure that the association and community has completed its milestone inspection. This is not optional. This is the difference between a good investment and a financial disaster. All right, here's what I want you to do right now. First, download my free Florida HOA Investor Checklist. It's 27 specific items covering rental restrictions, the financial health of the association, insurance, governing documents, and deal analysis. I built this from 13 years of being licensed as both a Florida real estate professional and community association manager, managing Florida communities. And I update it as the rules change. Now, the link is in the description below, and it's also pinned in the comments. It's completely free. So if you're looking at any Florida property inside an HOA or condo community, you need this before you make an offer. Second, if you're actively looking at a deal right now, and if you want me to personally review it with you, I do offer real estate consulting through Premier Property Group of Volusia County. It's a 45-minute call, and we go through the property together. I tell you exactly what I see, the good and the bad. That link is also in the description. And if you felt this video was useful, subscribe. I put out new content every week covering Florida HOA traps, deal analysis, private lending, property management from the inside, and there's a lot more where this came from. I'm Moe Remillard. I'll see you in the next one.